Okay, class, picking up where we left off, we had 16x is equal to 220 times 12, which gave us 16x, which is equal to 2,640. So we would divide each side by 16, and x will be equal to 165, and we know that's calories. Okay, so we will put down that a 12-ounce non-fat caramel macchiato has 165 calories. Now, we scroll down here to the next page. It says if a gallon of paint covers 450 square feet, how many gallons are needed to paint a retaining wall that is 270 feet long and 11 feet high? Round to the nearest whole gallon. Okay, now we want to paint a retaining wall, so we need to know how many gallons we need. X is equal gallons of paint to paint retaining wall. Okay, so now, first thing we need to do is set up our proportion. We know for 1 gallon, that will cover 450 square feet. Let me cross that out here. Okay, now this is equal to, we don't know how many gallons we have, but there's a problem here. We don't have square feet. We got 270 feet long and 11 feet high, so we need to multiply that. So we'll take 270 times 11, and if you use your calculator, or if you multiply it by hand, it'll be 2,970. And that'll be square feet. So now we cross multiply. Well, let me scroll back down here. So we will have 1 gallon over 450 square feet is equal to x over 2,970 square feet. Cross multiply, we have 1 times 2,970 and 450 times x. So it'd be 2,970 is equal to 450x. Divide each side by 450. And this will give you 6.6, which is equal to x. Now, remember, we want to round to the nearest whole gallon. So it'll be approximately 7 gallons. So x will be approximately 7 gallons. So our final answer is about 7 gallons of paint is needed to paint the retaining wall. And that is it. Now we come to section 6.4, square roots and the Pythagorean theorem. The square of a number is a number multiplied to itself. Okay, it says the reverse process of squaring is finding the square root. In other words, the square root asks the question, what would I square to get this number? What is the square root of 25? Now, first of all, let's take a look at what a square root looks like. Square root typically looks like this. So when they say, what is the square root of 25? They really mean this here, the square root of 25. So we ask ourselves, what number multiplied to itself will give us 25? And that number would be 5. And it says here, the question you need to ask, what would I square to get 25? Which we figured out here, which would be 5. Now, there are technically two possible answers. We know 5 times 5 is 25, but also negative 5 is also an answer. So our answer here would be negative 5 or 5. Because we know if we took negative 5 times negative 5, that would give us 25. And we also know 5 times 5 is also 25. So that's why both of these numbers work. Okay, now it says since every positive number has two square roots, we need to know which answer we are looking for. We use the radical sign, which I showed you earlier, to mean the positive square root. So the square root of 25 is 5. Now, actually up here, when you get into later math, you wouldn't say negative 5 or 5. You would say negative 5 comma 5. When you get to the higher level maths, you're going to indicate both of these answers. Okay, but now we're just going to stick with the positive answers in this course. Okay, now we come down here to number 1, the square root of 49. What number squared will give us 49? That's 7. What number squared will give us 81? That's 9, which is the square root of 81. And now you look here. This 1 over 36, this whole fraction is under this radical. So we could separate this. We'll take the square root of 1 over the square root of 36. Square root of 1 is 1. Square root of 36 is 6. So the square root of 1 over 36 is 1/6. And then the square root of 0 is just 0. Now, of course, not all square roots turn out so pretty. Considering the following. Square root of 17. Nobody get out their calculators yet. Now, the square root of 17, you cannot think of two exact numbers that multiply together that will give you 17. So it's going to be a long decimal answer. Now, we look here. Now, what I want you all to do here is just round to 3 decimal places. So we have the square root of 43. So we take out this calculator. Now, on this calculator here, we do not have the square root key. Okay, class, the calculator that I'm using with this computer does not have the square root key. So what I did was I took the liberty of putting it in and writing out the answer. If you need additional assistance with putting in the square root key in your calculator, it's no problem. You can come and see me during my office hours and I will show it to you. But the square root of 43 will be approximately 6.557 if you round to the thousands place, or as I said, 3 decimal places. And the square root of 79 will be approximately 8.888. And that will be your final answer for these two problems if you're rounding to 3 decimal place, or as we commonly know it as the thousandths place. Next, we have the Pythagorean theorem. Now, if you notice here, this is what we call a right triangle. It has a right angle, which is a 90-degree angle. And we have two sides that are considered to be the legs and one side considered to be the hypotenuse. Now note, the hypotenuse is always directly across from the right angle. So directly across from this right angle is your hypotenuse. And your hypotenuse is always the longest side. Okay, now we go over here to the next page. It says find the length of the missing sides of the following triangle. Now, let me give you the Pythagorean theorem. The Pythagorean theorem basically goes like this. We have a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. Now your a and b is your legs. So it's basically leg squared plus leg squared is equal to your c is your hypotenuse squared. Now it says find the length of the missing sides of the following triangle. Now if we look at this triangle, it's assumed here that this is a 90-degree angle. So directly across here is our hypotenuse, which is what we're trying to find. So we will go a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. Now we have our a and b, but right now it doesn't matter what is a and what is b. The difference is the c. So we'll make 8a, we'll make b 6, and we don't know what c is. 8 squared is 64. 6 squared is 36, and that equals c squared. 64 and 36 is 100. and it equals c squared. So we would take the square root of both sides, and we had 10 is equal to c. So 10 is your hypotenuse. So that was the missing side that we were trying to find. So now we go down here to number 2. Now again, we have to put in our 90-degree angle, and directly across is our hypotenuse, but we already have it. So what we're missing is a leg. So we'll still do our a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Now we could just say we have a, which is 5. We don't know what b is, and we have c, which is 7. So we had 25 plus b squared is equal to 49. Subtract 25 on both sides, and we have b squared is equal to 24. Now, we have to take the square root of both sides, the square root of b squared and the square root of 24. So we have b, and it's going to be an approximation because 24 does not have a perfect square. Now, when we round, we typically only round to 1 decimal place unless otherwise stated when we do the Pythagorean theorem. So this will be approximately 4.9, and that will be the final answer. And we are done.